All right, welcome to today's installment of StackHawk Office Hours, turning when don'ts into Windows, where we'll be focusing on automating HawkScan throughout the Windows ecosystem. If you're using Windows, Azure pipelines, or even GitHub Actions, but working off of a Windows, we're going to walk through all of that information and answer any questions that anybody might have about automating HawkScan on Windows or really any other operating system or any questions in general. We're here to help. So don't hesitate to ask anything that you've encountered or that comes to mind throughout the session. My name is Nicole Jones. I'm a product marketing manager here at StackHawk, and I've got a full team here with me today. So I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Brian, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. So I'm Brian Erickson. I'm a senior product manager here at StackHawk and focused mostly on our scanning technology. Yeah.
Dana.
Sure. Hey, I'm Dana White. I am a senior software engineer here at StackHawk, and I am on the scanning team, so I work on our scanning technology. Should I pass it to Sam?
Yeah. Hey there. My name is Sam Volan. I'm a full stack software engineer here at StackHawk, and I'm a programmer, mathematician, rad dude, and your friend.
Nice. And we do have Kevin on the slide here, as you can see, but he is off doing solutions architect work and actually working with a customer right now. So he will hop back on when he's ready. But I'll go ahead and kick it off to Brian to get us started.
All right. Thanks, Nicole. So before we dive into the details, I thought it'd be good to take a moment to highlight the incredible work our team has done over the past year or so to make StackHawk even better for our Windows users and those in the Azure ecosystem. So first off, let's talk about our Azure Marketplace integration. So you can now find StackHawk on the Azure Marketplace, making it easier than ever to get started. Not only can you find us there, but you can also quickly integrate StackHawk into your Azure Pipelines build system now. This makes it super easy to ensure that security testing becomes a seamless part of your CI/CD process. Think of it as the start menu of your StackHawk experience, easy to navigate and just a click away. So next up is Azure DevOps boards. So imagine running a StackHawk scan and sending the findings directly to your development team on ADO boards. Well, you don't have to imagine it. You can do it. Link those findings to existing work items or even create new ones. You don't ever have to leave the StackHawk interface, and you can manage your security findings directly in one place. And then we can't forget our Windows installer. So with the launch of the Windows MSI installer, running StackHawk on your Windows machine is super easy. You have the choice now, and Sam's going to talk about this in a moment, of installing HawkScan with our Docker container, MSI installer, or directly from the zip archive. And a couple more recent additions, NTLM support. You can now configure that type of auth directly from your StackHawk YAML configuration file, and Dana's going to talk more about that in a moment. And we just this week actually just launched an improved way to manage certificates. So if you've ever had to work with a proxy server, managing certificates can be a bit cumbersome, especially on Windows, but we now have a way to simplify that process, and Dana's also going to cover that in just a moment. So in conclusion on this, we just want to make it clear that we're committed to making StackHawk a tool that you can run on any environment, whether it's Mac, Windows, Linux, in the cloud, on Azure, and everywhere you need it to. So now I'm going to hand it over to Sam to talk a bit more about how to get StackHawk running in Windows.
Thank you, Brian. So the power of StackHawk platform, and HawkScan is it gives software developers the tools they need to find and fix software vulnerabilities in development and in the pipeline before they get to prod. Now, HawkScan API Vulnerability Scanner is platform agnostic, and it can run natively on many CI/CD platforms and on many operating systems, including Windows and Azure pipelines. At StackHawk, we build and deploy multiple versions of our scanner that can best support many different kinds of engineering needs, and that can operate well both locally and in the pipeline. All HawkScan deliverables are released together, and so whenever we update HawkScan, all versions and kinds of our HawkScan installer and runtime are updated and deployed at once. And this means developers running HawkScan locally may be on a different installer than what their team utilizes in the pipeline. And that's just fine. And because the HawkScan CLI runs on the JVM, this requires a separate installation of Java on the client machine. Specifically for our Windows users, we provide a MSI installer for HawkScan that can install both the HawkScan CLI and a Java runtime to be used by the scanner. And I will be demoing this process here in a bit. So depending on how your team likes to build software, you can opt for the HawkScan runtime that suits your needs. Containerized CI/CD pipelines like Jenkins and GitLab and CircleCI, those can all use the HawkScan Docker container to run their application in a pod alongside HawkScan and get directly to scanning. And the Docker container includes the Java runtime needed to run. We also provide HawkScan as a zip installer, and this is just a zip file with the same contents that are in the Docker container, with a bash and PowerShell script to start HawkScan the way we like it on the respective operating systems. On Windows, it will start from an equivalent PowerShell script. And keep this in mind, depending on how you want to use Windows and Azure pipelines, you may want to opt instead for running from a zip installer than from the MSI. Talk about that in a bit. And so with this presentation, we're going to show what it is like to install and run HawkScan on Windows, starting from just the command line. And power of this, what I will show is using this command MSI exec to install HawkScan just from the terminal. And so if it's all right, Nicole, I'll go ahead and take the screen share. All right, let's see if we can do this right.
You got it.
Okay, you guys seeing my my Windows environment here?
Yep.
Wonderful. So I'm going to use this command MSI exec to install HawkScan just directly from the terminal here. And ooh, look at this nice little warning. Microsoft is really looking out for us. So when I run this command, and actually I ran this with a passive flag, that was really kind of it, but I was hoping to actually run this without the passive flag to show you what the install process looks like and to explain how and where it runs. And so when we run the installer, passing in the -i flag, we can provide a URL to a signed MSI. Whenever we release new versions of HawkScan, we will deploy them to our download.stackhawk.com address. And from there, you could find the other versions of our installer, such as the zip installer, as well as other development versions we may be putting out. This will take a moment as it downloads the executable. And then from there, we'll be able to get a view of how it is running and how it will install. Apologize, I did not mean to run this twice, and I think it's already going to run once.
Did you choose that background yourself, Sam?
No, this is the background that comes with it. Just by default with Windows 11. And I do just want to emphasize, here at StackHawk, we use OS X laptops, and we're running with Windows in parallel, and we'll also be developing in our pipeline on Linux. And so our engineering is already cross-platform, and we want to encourage others to be fearless working in the technical unknown. All right, so when the installer comes forward, you'll get an option to choose where you want to install it. because this is it's already been installed, it's already giving us the option to repair the installation or remove the install. But once it's installed, it will put Hawk directly onto the path. And so I'm going to actually start a new terminal here, and I could show that if I type just the command Hawk, maybe it's not already, goodness, the curse of the demos.
Live demos.
Oh, here, so I'm actually going to remove HawkScan and then reinstall it. So I'll also just mention with the MSI exec, if you use the passive flag, it will install it just as we've shown instantly. You could also alternatively use the quiet flag, which is better for installing on the terminal or in the pipeline. And additionally, you could specify details like an install directory so that you have fine-grained control of where it installs. So when it installs, it is also going to install both Java and the HawkScan CLI together. So here, I'm going to just go ahead and run this again. And again, it's going to download. I apologize. But the power of this is that by giving us both the Java installation, that eliminates one step for Windows users who want to install HawkScan directly onto their environment. And that is an incredibly convenient prospect.
Hey, Sam,
Okay.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
When you're doing this installation and I want to be able to call HawkScan from my terminal or command line, do I need to add the path or any kind of like the environment path on my Windows machine? Is that necessary with the after the installation?
So if on other operating systems, such as OS X, if you install from our brew installer, that will nudge you to also ensure that you have your Java installation included. And what's excellent about the MSI installer is that you do not have to separately update the path or follow up with that.
Nice. Awesome.
And so the key reason why I wanted to show just the visual installer is so that we get direct access to the path of where this is getting installed so that I could show you what gets put down. And so as this installs, if I go to that location, oh yes, it's still installing. I'm being very eager to show you the powers of what we've accomplished.
Patience, Sam, patience.
Yes. There we go.
Who doesn't love a good progress bar? I mean, come on.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it gives you that progressive incremental feelings of goodness. And so once installed, we'll see what gets put down. And we have this direct application that if we run it just locally is our HawkScan executable that will start up a terminal shell and will run the HawkScan. Separately, what we see is that HawkScan is installed in this app directory, and this is the same contents that are in our zip installer. And then separately, HawkScan includes the runtime, which includes the entirety of the Java install that we want to provide. And so if we look in here, we'll be able to see the Java executable that HawkScan will use to when it runs on Windows. And so using this tool of MSI exec, software developers can install HawkScan locally with convenience or in the pipeline with just one simple command that they could run in Azure pipelines. All right, Nicole, I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. If you could bring the slides back.
Yeah, I'll take back over. There we go. And I think we're ready for the next slide, right?
Yep.
Cool. There you go.
All right. So running HawkScan in Azure pipelines. So assuming that you've already made an application within the StackHawk platform, and you have created a StackHawk YAML to scan your application, and as software developers, you have practiced scanning your web application locally with HawkScan in a developer's environment. Then you could use your StackHawk.yaml configuration you've refined to build and test in the pipeline. And so running HawkScan Azure pipelines is going to be the same set of steps for any CI/CD provider. Step one, you're going to install your application. And this is likely in Azure pipelines just the checkout self step. Every CI/CD provider will make this easy to help get your code building in an automated fashion. If you store your StackHawk YAML with your source code, which we encourage you to do, then that configuration will help with step 4. Number 2 is installing HawkScan. So we just listed a few different ways to get HawkScan onto your build platform. And in the case of Azure pipelines running on Windows, a developer may still want to instead use HawkScan with the zip installer or the MSI installer. And for the most part, they will behave exactly the same, but I will give you some further details on when you would want to choose one or the other. The third step is perhaps the most challenging, and that's running your application. So HawkScan is going to attack a running web application. And in the pipeline, this means that you have to start it in a manner with sufficient authentication and with fixture test data and enough entitled access so that you can use your web application while it's running in your build pipeline. And we encourage you to start your web apps in that same pipeline that you're testing from, because things like network distance and rate limiting and web application firewalls can all slow or inhibit a scan. And this step is entirely custom for every software engineering outfit. But this is also what HawkScan is great at, is being able to work in the pipeline and be able to test your web applications where you're building it. Assuming that your software development team has taken the time to build and document the steps needed to run your web applications in a development and test environment, then you will have no problem with this step. Your web application is your responsibility to build, and it's StackHawk's job to secure. Fourth step is running HawkScan, and we make this so straightforward. On the terminal, the command is just HawkScan. It's that easy. And as long as the web application is running and reachable, and the StackHawk YAML is pointed at the scanned host, you will find your web application being scanned and attacked with the similar web application hacking techniques that a dedicated pen tester would attempt. All right, I'll take the screen share just one more time, just to show off a couple details.
Cool, you got it.
So at StackHawk, we have a vulnerable app that we refer to often as Java Spring Vulny. And this vulnerable web app is purpose-built wrong, so that we can give demonstrations of how HawkScan can be used to find vulnerabilities in a broken web application. And included in this vulnerable app, which is publicly available at github.com/kaka/JavaSpringVulny, we include a copy of our Azure pipelines.yaml that gets used whenever we make updates to our Java Spring Vulny vulnerable app, as well as when we test our HawkScan extension. Part of the power of Azure pipelines is the ability to stripe builds in an incredible manner. And this is done with the matrix strategy. And so using this, we run HawkScan against Java Spring Vulny on Windows, on Ubuntu, and with both the MSI and the zip installer, and with options to choose intelligently for you. And so as an example of how to use Azure pipelines with HawkScan, you're going to do the step 1, checking out your code, and then step 2, installing HawkScan. With the HawkScan Azure extension, these tasks are available with some convenient, with just convenient names. There's the HawkScan install task and the run HawkScan task, both of which can optionally take in different installer types. You can opt for the auto, which is by default and will choose for you depending on your operating system, or otherwise you could fine-grain choose MSI or zip. From there, you have to start your web application, and this is entirely custom, and we have some custom steps. But for us, then, we start our vulnerable web app with Gradle using this command start process that will begin it in the background. And then from there, running HawkScan is able to use the StackHawk YAML in the repo and begin attacking the running web application. Additionally, we could pass in any necessary secrets or details needed to run HawkScan, which will include your HawkScan API key and ideally your application ID so that StackHawk knows where to bucket the scan results. All right. And
Back to the slide.
back to the slides.
You got it. All right. And we'll be sharing these slides afterwards, so you can access all the resources linked in the deck as well. Just a heads up. Who's next? Or are we still on Sam?
One last couple last thoughts here.
Go for it.
All right, so before we conclude, I just want to give some extra details about running with self-hosted runners. And understandably, secure enterprise software engineering will demand that you have to run builds on the computers that you manage. And as a result, Windows development teams may want to use Azure pipelines with their own managed runners. And this can be accomplished by configuring and running the Azure Pipelines agent on your Windows host. And there's a lot of reasons why you'll want to do this. For one, being self-hosted gives you more control over your build environment and can allow you to install whatever dependent software you need for your builds and deployments. Additionally, machine-level caches and the configuration will persist between each run on your self-hosted runners, and that can boost the speed of your builds. Additionally, you can also get specific control over the size of a runner and when and how it operates. And this can save on money when your builds are infrequent, or you could spend more money and scale up when your builds are really complex. So many Windows sysadmins, though, may have preferences over how their build environments are secured. And if you're running HawkScan on a self-hosted Windows runner, then your team's security policies may impact how your self-hosted runner will operate in Azure pipelines. So for one example, some security teams will want to disable the MSI server service on their build systems. And that's the service that allows the HawkScan MSI installer to work from the terminal. And they may want to disable that as a preventive measure to ensure that no unauthorized software can be installed on the host. If this is the case, then you won't be able to use the MSI flavored version of the HawkScan install task with Azure pipelines. Similarly, there are other security teams who will want to disable running PowerShell scripts on their build servers. Well, the zip runner of HawkScan starts from a PowerShell script, and so if that's the case, you won't be able to use the zip flavored install. Similarly, sysadmins that want fine-grained control over the JVM should instead manually manage a zip installer and bring their own Java. And also, sysadmins that do not want HawkScan to automatically update as part of the build process should then instead proceed to pin to a specific version of HawkScan and manually download and run the latest MSI installer at their convenience. StackHawk is here to help engineering teams stay on top of their application security posture, regardless of their CI/CD system, their operating system, and any security policies their operation may have to comply with. We're here to help. All right. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Dana, who will show us scanning with NTLM authentication on Windows.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, we could probably hop to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to demo some NTLM authentication on my Windows machine. If you don't know what NTLM authentication is, you probably don't care about this demo. But anyways, it's a multi-legged HTTP type of authentication. You go to the server, it challenges you, you do some things to the token it sends back, and then sends it back again. It is usually tied to like your Active Directory on your Windows machine, so you looks kind of transparent. But for HawkScan to work, it needs your authentication. So if I could grab the screen share real quick, I will show you how it works.
Away.
Word. All right, let's see. Okay. Am I sharing my screen? We all see this NTLM app
Yeah.
right here we have?
Yep.
It's very fancy. It's like auto log me in because this is who I am on my machine. So I'm going to just demo running HawkScan against it with no authentication. So like Sam demo showed us, I have already installed it via MSI and it's on my path and I'm just giving it HawkScan. So it's picking up my default StackHawk YAML. This is kind of what it looks like. It tells you what the host is. This is my application ID. This is my environment. It's the 3 lines you need to run any HawkScan, basically. But it doesn't have any authentication right now. So it's going through and while it does find the local host and that it exists, it says it's crawled 2 URLs, which is something that HawkScan just guesses. Maybe you have a robots.txt, maybe you have a sitemap.xml, but if we go back to our site, we have a home, we have this little privacy page, and it's not getting any of those because it's just getting a 401. So we can go and look at our results in the platform and see how they kind of look. Okay, so you see we've got 2 paths, some vulnerabilities that just default, you don't have these. But if we even like drill down into the findings, you see the response is 401. So we're not getting into our app, we're not scanning anything. So basically what we would do is add an authentication section here and fill it all out. I'm not going to torture everyone by watching me type. So I already have it filled out with the StackHawk with auth YAML. So I've set my username and password as environment variables because they're very secret and I don't want anybody to know. We have some logged out indicators, which just say, if you remember how the page looks, it just says hello and it's got this right there. So it's just searching the page for that. And that says, hey, I'm logged in. And a logged out indicator, I'm doing a status code of 500, but 401 would probably work just as well. And so this is your authentication piece. It's a username password. The username password field aren't as important in the HTTP authentication. So you can put whatever you want in there, same with the login path. But this type here is HTTP. The other types we have is like form and JSON. But these are important. The scan username and your scan password are going to be your like Active Directory username password. And this is my realm, which is some Parallels made up thing. And then this is our authorization, which keeps us logged in. It's a header auth and the type is NTLM. And so we have a test path and this should return a 200. Usually this is just your base root path, but it'll return a 401 if you're not logged in. So let's run our scan again. But this time I'm going to specify that I want this one with auth. So this is another feature of HawkScan. If you want to give it a different configuration, if you want to overlay configurations, you can. So this time I'm running it and it's taking a little while to look, getting everything parsed up. And it's authenticating. So now we should see a little bit more coming out of it. Starting the scanner engine. Waiting for it to scan. But yeah, so while it's going, it's doing a bunch of different things. And then This is a little bit new from where we saw it before. It's authentication succeeded, and so you know that happened. And then you can kind of check out. There's a whole bunch more URLs that it found because it's actually getting into our app rather than just guessing with the robots.txt. While it's running, we can even look at it in the platform. So it's going right now, as again, we see 19 paths already, 6 findings, whereas we had 2 paths before. And so that we can even look at what we had there before. Yeah, 2 paths, 3 findings. And then as we go through, we look at that and let's go check on our scanner, see how it's doing. And so, yeah, we've got a little bit of a question mark progress bar going on as it's finishing up its scan. And so, yeah, we've already seen that we can have more paths that way. And it is super simple to set up, just giving it its username and password. And that's pretty much it for NTLM. If there are any questions.
I mean, it wouldn't be a Windows thing if there wasn't a progress bar. So it matches up.
Exactly. Cool.
Sweet.
Do we want to bring up the slides again and then we can go into the next part of it?
Yes, I got you. All right, ready for the next slide?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so a lot of times especially in corporate environments, you'll have what's called a transparent proxy. Lots of things can be a transparent proxy. It's just internet traffic goes through it to the outside interwebs, and it doesn't change the request, is what a transparent proxy should do. Like a firewall is not a transparent proxy. A lot of times you'll have it set up at your gateway. So like almost like a modem basically. And what you will need to do to get through it is you will have a root CA certificate to say, hey, I am this, and like I would like to go through the proxy. Now, a lot of times, usually when you run HawkScan and you have that issue, you'll have this PKIX path building failed. And typically what you would do is you would go export your certificate, you'd add it into the Java key store, and then you could use it from there. But with the newest version of HawkScan, we've made it a little bit easier to do that. And I can demo that now.
When I stop and start sharing the Zoom control switch from the top to the bottom, and it throws me
I
off
know,
every
it's
time.
so hard. Okay, so I'm going to start off. This is just a WireGuard proxy. I'm going to activate it, and you're not going to see in the background, but I do have a Ubuntu machine also on Parallels running the proxy. Make sure that's started up. And so because it knows how to do all this stuff, it can get through. Make sure it's running and getting through. So the browser all knows how to handle that. But when I go ahead and I run HawkScan, even with my auth right there, it's going to try to just use it. And so Java doesn't know about this. So you see some failed attempts, and there's our error validating certificate. So what you can do in this instance, find your certificates, and you're going to get into your trusted root certificate authority. And this one I set up with my man-in-the-middle proxy. And you go to LTAS, export it, and you're just going to export it to a file location. So MTIM proxy 3. We can even do a third one because these are all the same proxy because I've been exporting it over and over again. And then we're going to specify it in our HawkScan config. So of course, I have another config that I already set up. So everything is the same in this. what you're going to see is that this extra section is the Hawk and then outbound proxy. And this will support both an explicit proxy or the transparent proxy. If it was explicit, you give it a host, maybe credentials, username, password. But this one, it just knows to go through it. And so you're just going to tell it where you put that certificate. We're going to change it to 3 now. It's very exciting. And so now when we go to run, oh, that's not the one, our HawkScan, let's see. And we're going to use our proxy, StackHawk _ proxy with that root CA. What should be happening now is that HawkScan is now dynamically loading that root certificate from where you specified. And now you can see that you get your little happy hawk here. Okay, it's an eagle, but you know, it's a hawk. We could call it a hawk. And now it's actually starting and going through and doing the scan as it should be and going to give us all traffic to our platform. And again, we can see we should get the same exact scan as we did before, but it's just actually getting through it instead of getting stopped at the transparent proxy. So yeah, that's the simple way to set that all up. And then it goes. So do we have any questions on this one?
So I do have a question.
Sure.
Is this traffic that the scanner is sending to my application, or traffic that is going back to the StackHawk platform that's going through this proxy?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian. This is only going back to the platform. It's considered your outbound traffic. Like Sam said, you want your StackHawk or your HawkScan running really close to your application. So your application shouldn't be behind a proxy. So that way that you're on the same network as your application. And so then only the outbound traffic is going through that proxy with the certificate.
So that's just my scan results that are going back to the StackHawk web interface and platform.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the stuff that goes to the proxy, whereas going to your application does not.
Thank you.
That's a good question. Any other questions?
Yeah, I guess on a related note, if I have a firewall in place that is a transparent proxy like this, but it's blocking access to a lot of other sites, are there any particular sites that I need to open up access to in order for the scanner to run? Like where is this API that it needs to reach out to?
The API that it needs to reach out to is api.stackhawk. We should actually be able to see that. That's a great question because I don't really know off the top of my head. Yeah, so it's the api.stackhawk.com. I think that's one of them. And then you might need to open up through the S3 buckets, I think. But yeah, that's a great question. I don't remember what that one is off the top of my head. But yeah, there's 2 points it needs to access. One's the API, stackhawk.com, or maybe just the API, stackhawk.com. I don't know.
Cool, thank you.
Oops.
All right.
Cool.
Think if anybody has more questions on that, drop them whenever, ask whenever. It doesn't have to be totally in line with the content. We'll jump back over to the slides, see what we got left. Okay. Oh, that's the slide that's supposed to be skipped. So I think that wraps it up. If anybody else, our lovely panelists and hosts, do you have any final words that you want to add? before we wrap it up? And then if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop them now. That was it. We covered it all. We did it. All right, cool. Well, like I said, everybody will get slides and a copy or access to the recording, so you can reference this session later and then access anything that we referenced during the talk itself. As you can see, like each slide has a little section for resources to complement it. And as always, just reach out if you have any questions or need additional help, either in the platform through Intercom, on the website through Intercom, or just send a carrier pigeon. Either, there's tons of ways. We are here to help. Your connected Slack channel is a great way as well if you have that going. And if you don't, talk to us and see what you got to do to get one set up. But all right.
There's always, of course, our Intercom chat in the app or on our website if you want to reach out with Windows or any other kind of question.
Yes, any questions are welcome. It's a little, what is it? A little chat bubble in the bottom corner.
Yep.
That's how you can get in touch with us. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks to all of our hosts for a great session. We'll catch you next month.
Thanks all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.